All right, so my name is Jacob Labrie, and I am doing my presentation on hormonal control of implantation and early embryonic development. So I wanted to start, let me move this over. So I wanted to start by looking at the major hormones and kind of emphasizing them just because that's the basis of this presentation. So actually, this picture was taken right from our human physiology textbook. Um, and it does a really good job at summarizing the major hormones involved. There are a couple, intermediate steps and in hormones and substrates and stuff that are, excluded just to simplify this picture. But it does do a good job at focusing on the three that I want to focus on. So I'm focusing on gonadotropin releasing hormone, luteinizing hormone, and follicle stimulating hormone. And as you see on the left, they are abbreviated as such. So, as you can see here, everything starts at the central nervous system in the brain, which after stimulation, the hypothalamus will release gonadotropin releasing hormone, which will travel down the stalk of the hypothalamus, of the pituitary, and act on the anterior pituitary to release both luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Both of these hormones have a significant impact on both males and females when it comes to the reproductive system. So they both will be acting on the gonads, either that is the testes or the ovaries. In males, these will the outcome will be spermatogenesis, which is the production of sperm and the maturation of sperm. While in females, it will go through the menstrual cycle. So starting at menstruation, ovulation, and then to the latent stage of that after the oocyte is expelled from the ovaries into the fallopian tubes. As you can see, they also will release steroids, whether that be testosterone, estradiol, or estrogen, or progesterone, and this will lead to a long loop feedback, may either be negative or positive, and will also actually work on secondary sexual characteristics as well. So spermatogenesis, so let's focus on the male pathway first. So how I did this is I kind of broke it down from male to female and then kind of bringing it all together in implantation and early embryonic development. So as we already know, gonadotropin releasing hormone released by the hypothalamus goes down the stalk of the pituitary to the anterior pituitary, which then releases the two hormones, FSH and LH. So this has a little bit more going on. But the basis of this is basically these two hormones will not only do secondary sexual characteristics by the release of testosterone from the Leydig cells, but also will work as a secondary messenger system to androgen binding protein that will work with testosterone as well to lead to the maturation of sperm. So it takes about 12 days or so, I think, to sperm to go through the epididymis and be matured. Once sperm reach maturity, they will develop what is this little thing here, which is a flagellum, which helps the sperm become motile. That's when you know that the sperm is matured because it's able to move, which will be seen as beneficial later. So then we're looking at hormonal control of the menstrual cycle. So sorry for the little blur. I had to try to blow it up as much as possible. But this is also something that is taken out of the textbook, as well as the previous one, actually. So this shows the menstrual cycle. So, I forgot to say, for males, the cycle is daily. So daily we make about 200 million sperm cells. Like I said, it takes about 12 days or so to mature, but we make about 200 million of them. Now that seems like a big amount, but that's actually about the same amount that will come out through ejaculation as well. So in relatively speaking, you make as much as potentially you might use in a day or two or whatever. So for females, it's a little bit different. So the menstrual cycle is about a month long. You can see it goes from 0 to 28 days, about a month approximately. And this is a cycle. And it starts with the flow and kind of like a gradient of both FSH, LH, estrogen, as well as progesterone. So as you can see, the first couple of days through menstruation, they're relatively low in comparison to what happens through ovulation. So ovulation is when the follicle will mature the oocyte in order for it to be released into the fallopian tubes. So how it is released is by this huge influx of LH. So it's called the LH surge, which will, when the oocyte is matured, will then be released into the fallopian tubes. After that happens, you do see around right after day 14, 15, there's a surge of progesterone. So this is kind of the end of the cycle where the follicle will be kind of degenerated and will go back and be ready to be for a new follicle to mature with a new egg, a new oocyte to be implanted and ready for fertilization for the next cycle. So it shows here. So early embryonic development. So kind of putting it all together. So right here, it's not really clearly presented, but this is the ovary. You can see the oocyte here. So it is the mature oocyte that was released by the ovary by the mature follicle. So it's released into the fallopian tube. So it sits here and waits for fertilization by the sperm. So we all know how sperm will get in here. So it will go into the uterus, travel up the fallopian tube, and down until it penetrates the wall of the oocyte. So this acrosome, which we should know that the sperm has at the tip, the acrosome will release digestive enzymes that will be able to penetrate the barrier of the oocyte for the sperm to get in and then fertilize. Once that happens, no other sperm can get in. It's only one, and then it is done. There's no other sperm that is able to penetrate after that. There are some cases, but it's fairly rare. As you can see, traveling down the fallopian tube, as it travels down through the consecutive days, it will divide into more cells. Around day 4, it will be a 16-cell, which isn't really presented here, but it'll be a 16-cell egg, which is called a morula. And then it'll divide again around day 5. It will become a blastocyst, which is about 32 cells or so. Once this blastocyst happens, within the next consecutive days, it will shed what is called the zona pellucida. It will shed that and be able to implant itself into the endometrium of the uterine wall. And then from there, the phases of embryonic cycles will happen, and then it will become a fetus, and then until it is a baby ready to be born. Oh. So wanting to look at this, now we have a concept map that I wanted to throw in here. It's the best one I could really find that really summarizes FH and LH's role in the reproductive system for both male and female. So there's a lot of words here, but in general, looking at it here, LH and FSH in both males and females released by the anterior pituitary to act on both, well, for males it would be the testes, and for females it would be the ovaries, and go through that process that was described before. So these are the effects of the sex hormones. In males, the secondary sex characteristics will be expressed with the increase in testosterone, and vice versa with the release of estrogen. The secondary sex characteristics will be pronounced in the females. You can also see with the estrogen can kind of create a negative feedback loop, and so can the testosterone create a negative feedback loop. So it inhibits the gonadotropin releasing factor from releasing more when there's a significant amount of both testosterone and estrogen released. It's kind of looking at the medical side of this. If something was either wrong with the anterior pituitary, if there was, a lesion, or if something happened where the gonadotropin releasing factor was not abundant enough, something were to happen where, it just wasn't there, that would lead to not being able to release these hormones. And if these hormones aren't being released, then there would not be, spermatogenesis, or there would not be a maturation of the follicles, which leads to ovulation. There might be, but there'd be a defect, so that there's potential there for both the sperm and the oocyte not to be fully matured, or not only fully matured, but not to be what's considered, I guess, normal. I don't have a better word for that, but So it could potentially lead to an individual being sterile and not being able to either inseminate or to become fertilized properly and become pregnant. So it could lead to an individual being sterile due to not being able to release luteinizing hormone or follicle stimulating hormone. There's a lot more steps, and it's a lot more complicated, with a lot more intermediate steps and substrates and enzymes and everything. But this is the general, this is a general concept map for both of those. So thank you.